Good afternoon to all. Thanks for joining us for another Chamber Roundtable. I'm Alfred Sanchez, President and CEO of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. Today's topic is the latest round of PPP loans and what you need to know to get funded. As we've done in the past, today we've partnered with some of our community partners, the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, and the Coalition of Miami-Dade County Chambers of Commerce, represented by their chair, Mark Trowbridge, President and CEO of the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce. In today's webinar, you're going to hear from the SBA giving an overview of the PPP regulations and processes in the third round of the stimulus funding. What is new, what's changed from the first round, and the different rules between getting a PPP for the first time and, since they're allowing reapplications, what applies to you if it's your second round of funding. We'll also hear feedback and comments from our local banks and lending institutions who are the mediaries to get the government funding to our small businesses. So I think a great program in store for us today. The platform for people to ask us, our experts, questions as usual will be the Q&A. So if you have a question, it's important that you put it in the Q&A, not in the chat, because those Q&A are the ones that are going to be floated up to our panelists. And so it's important because that's what this webinar is all about, is to get your questions to the experts so you can get your questions answered. The chat is going to be open. We, as a chamber, will always like people to be able to network with one another. You can use that to communicate with one another. You can use that to drop in pertinent information that you might want to share. Look there for links to some of the items that are going to be discussed throughout the program, and that way you can get direct access to the programs and materials being shared. The Chamber has taken an active role in assisting small businesses with their loans applications through not only the application, but also the forgiveness portion of that through the help center that we've set up called GMCC Cares. The Beacon Council and others have done very similar things, and you'll be seeing the links to those in the chat throughout the program. So please look at that, because there are a lot of services and programs out there to help you with your needs. The Chamber and Beacon Council have also, and as other chambers have as well, have also partnered with the Career Source of South Florida to get out layoff aversion grants to businesses for who have really expended funds for supplies and other things. These are non-payroll related funds that basically you can get a grant up to $10,000. It's for small businesses who have been around for at least 2 years. You have 3 to 50 employees. And you are operating in Miami-Dade or Monroe County. You have to have qualifying expenses. This is reimbursement, so you have to have already expended the funds in order to get reimbursed. And there are other requirements that you will find at the links that you'll find in the chat to go right for that. Now, before I turn it over to my friend and colleague, Mike Finney, I want to run through some of the logistics again. As I said, the chat box is there. Our microphones are muted so we can really focus discussion. And just as a review, Q&A, that Q&A section is for your questions. Please put them there. All right, so let's get to it. Without further ado, let me introduce the President and CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, my friend, Mike Finney. Mike, it's yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot, Alfred, for the warm introduction. My part of this is pretty easy. It's to introduce our moderator and our panelists. But before making those introductions, I want to be sure to mention to all of the participants that the idea is to provide as much help as possible to everyone who's here looking for access to this round of PPP funding. We're going to try and provide you with as much resources and access as we can. One of the tools that we have available is a small business accelerator that we've set up in partnership with about 20 other organizations here in Miami-Dade County. And I'll include in the chat an email link that will allow you to very easily access the team that's working on that program. But for now, feel free to check out bizhelp.miami, BIZ help.miami, as one of the places where we have a lot of information that's going to be useful to you as you begin the process of pursuing this round of PPP. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, my good friend, Eric Knowles. Eric is an interesting guy for me because when it was announced that I was coming to Miami, Eric was the first person from Miami to reach out to me and say, hey, I want you to kick off one of our monthly employee partnership meetings with all of our members and share a little bit of the vision that you have for Miami-Dade County. So Eric, I don't think he knew this, but I had not arrived in town yet. So I made a special trip down from my home in Michigan at the time to make sure that I was available for his membership meeting. And I have to say, I've enjoyed his friendship and support ever since. Eric, of course, serves as the president and CEO of the Miami-Dade Chamber. It's one of the oldest chambers in the state of Florida, serving Black businesses, minorities, and women. And prior to that, Eric served as a member of the Miami Dolphins team for more than 15 years. Our panelists are Deborah Salas, Bernie Adrover, and Bernie Navarro. So quick introductions for those three. Deborah is the lead lender, a relations specialist, brand manager, and youth entrepreneurship financial literacy liaison for the U.S. Small Business Administration. She currently oversees all lending and financial relationships for the South Florida District. Formerly, she worked as Vice President, Director of Small Business Lending for Neighborhood Lending Partners. Bernie Adrover is Senior Vice President, Commercial Banking Director for South Florida Market City National Bank. He has more than 25 years of banking experience in South Florida financial institutions. Prior to joining City National Bank, he served in numerous leadership roles at Bank United, Bank of America, Barnett Bank of South Florida, where he started his banking career back in 1996. He's also very active in the South Florida community, having served on the boards of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. He served as chairman of South Florida Career Source Investment Board, and he currently holds the position of Banking and Finance Committee Chairman for the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. And Bernardo, we really appreciate the work that you do to support our community. And then Bernie Navarro is the founder of a family of companies that provides loans to businesses and individuals unable to secure financing from other traditional lending sources. His journey in alternative lending space began in 2008 with the formation of Benworth Capital Partners, a South Florida-based private equity licensed mortgage lender focused on real estate-backed financing. The firm recently expanded its offering to help small businesses and became one of a few non-bank lenders authorized by the SBA and the U.S. Department of Treasury to offer Paycheck Protection Program loans. So I think we have a great panel lined up to share their wisdom and the program details with all of you. And I look forward to your participation. Thanks a lot. I'll turn it over to Eric.
Well, Mike, you know, we are lucky to have you here, and we're glad that you came in a few days early to engage with the Miami-Dade Chamber membership. So it's been a great relationship, and everything that you've been doing since you hit town has been amazing and pulling a lot of organizations together. So we appreciate everything that you do. As Alfred said, we do have some housekeeping in terms of the questions, and I see a lot of the questions coming in right now. I see about 17 of them in the question and answer, and I'm sure there's stuff in the chat. I haven't looked there yet, but we're going to get started because I know all of you are looking to apply or find out what it is that you need to do in order to receive PPP, or if you're eligible for PPP. So with that, I'm going to push it over to Deborah. And Deborah, again, is with the SBA, and let her get started with some opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm here today as the lead lending relations specialist for the South Florida District Office. I'm happy to present with you our Paycheck Protection Program relaunch. I have been looking in the chat, and I do think I will answer the bulk of your very specific questions on PPP first draw and second draw. So today's guidance that I'm going to provide you was current as of January 14th. I just wanted to share that with you because guidance is changing. We are working very hard to fill in the gaps with our lenders and our borrowers that need a little more guidance and help. So with that being said, let's move on to the next slide, please. So obviously, Congress has intended this round of PPP to increase access and more funding to the hardest hit businesses. So we wanted to make sure when we launched that we have made sure that those that need the funds the most get access to it. So we started with our CFIs, our community financial institutions, and then we moved on later to banks that were $1 billion in assets and less. And now we launched this week, we went full force to all of our banks and lenders. We can move on to the next screen. So these are some key dates to keep in mind. I just shared with you our launch, and the specific dates are here, like I said. But the most important one here is to remind everybody that there's plenty of time and there's no need to rush. And we don't want you to feel like you did the first time in April when everybody made the mad dash and was worried that the funds would run out. You do have till March 31st, 2021, and there's plenty of funding left. Let's move to the next slide, please. So what is the first draw PPP loan? For eligible applicants that did not receive their loan prior to August 9th, okay, that's when we stopped the first round due to legislative requirements. So PPP loan eligibility now includes additional types of entities. We have covered eligible expenses that were expanded, and I will go over those in just a second. Borrowers can now select a covered period to use PPP loan proceeds anytime between 8 weeks or 24 weeks. Remember, it was one or the other prior, and now you can say, I want to use 13 weeks, for instance. Certain borrowers may request an increase to the original PPP loan amount. There are some caveats and requirements to that, but your lenders are aware, and you must apply on or before, like I said, March 31st, 2021, or until congressional appropriations expire. I just want to make sure everybody knows that for first draw, the entity with 500 employees or fewer, and you would need to check the NAICS size as well, standards. And we have added, obviously, there's nonprofits available, 501c6 organizations. It does exclude professional sports leagues, organizations that have the purpose of participating or promoting in political campaign and other activities. So there are some non-eligible entities. Let's move to the next slide, please. Changes to PPP. So we made it more flexible, easier for our small businesses. We added operation expenditures, software, cloud computing, HR, accounting expenses, property damage if they were unfortunately a victim of looting or public disturbance. It was not covered under your insurance. It could potentially be covered for PPP. Supplier costs essential to your business. Worker protection expenditure that you had to put glass up due to health directives, or expanded your business to a restaurant, maybe outdoor dining needed to occur, and you had expenses made for that. Also, employer provided group insurance can be included as payroll costs as well. Next slide. So first draw PPP loan eligibility. It is now newly eligible housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, such as, travel bureau, places in perhaps a rural area, certain 501c6 organization, chambers of commerce, as they're helping us today, and eligible news organizations. We still have eligibility for business entities, sole props, 1099, independent contractors, self-employed, and like I said, the different veteran organization, tribal organizations, and nonprofits that have various designations. We'll move on here. What is second draw PPP? So for borrowers that received a PPP loan prior, they have 300 employees or less. and they suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. Now, just to remember that you had to have used up your first draw disbursement before you can be eligible for your second draw disbursement, because logic would dictate, why would you need a second loan when you haven't finished using up the proceeds of the first loan, right? So for most borrowers, the maximum loan amount, oh, I will say this, you do not have to have applied for forgiveness though, okay? You don't have to have finished your forgiveness process on the first draw in order to be eligible for the second draw. For most borrowers, the maximum loan amount of second draw is 2.5 times the average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs, and the max is $2 million. For borrowers in the NAICS Code 72, accommodation and food services, the maximum loan amount for that is a little more generous. Obviously, their sectors and industry specifically were impacted largely. So they got 3.5 times the average monthly 2019 or 2020 of their choosing payroll costs up to $2 million. Second draw PPP loan applicants must submit the information on, we have a new form with S and D. Obviously, that is for second draw 2483 when applying to their lender. Now, you always should check with your lender and make sure that they don't have a certain online lender equivalent form that you should be filling out. Next slide, please. So second draw loan eligibility, you must have, like I said, previously received a first draw loan. Additional eligibility requirement is that you had to have used it all up to be eligible for the second, no more than 300 employees for the second draw, and you have to demonstrate in the second draw, not the first, the 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters of 2019 and 2020. So for example, let's say quarter three gross receipts were $10,000 in 2020, and 7,500 quarters must be comparable. For example, if the business was operating in 2019 and then you pick quarter three, for example, you have to also pick quarter three of 2020 to show the difference, your drop in that 25% revenue. Let's move on to the next. PPP loan forgiveness. So in this case, borrowers must apply for forgiveness through their lenders. Remember, the lenders have delegated authority and all PPP facilitation is done directly through your lender. How did we do some updates on our Economic Aid Act? The idle advances are uncoupled here, so no longer deducted from your forgiveness payment. So that is new, and the lender will be reimbursed, and they will be given the payment if you already went through forgiveness and your idle advance was subtracted and you have a small balance at either 2-year or 5-year term at 1% with your lender. So that will be coming shortly. And then forgiven PPP loans are not taxable income. Expenses paid with PPP loan funds are now taxable. Are now tax deductible. So you want to consult the IRS for any details on that. You go to irs.gov and you should consult your accountant for any specific tax questions relating to PPP. Expanded forgivable expenses are permissible for any PPP loan not already forgiven. So coming soon is a new updated simplified loan forgiveness application for 150 and under. Let's move to the next slide. So I just thought that I would show you a comparison here that between the CARES Act when we first rolled out, how we've made some really great, strong improvements for everybody. Then over the summer, the Flexibility Act came out, and now we're at the Economic Aid Act. So you see how we've learned and listened to our borrowers and our lenders and what the need is. So 60% minimum must be used for payroll and 40% minimum for non-payroll. And now we have a flexible covered period, any period of time between 8 and 24 weeks. The deferment is still at 10 months, and the term is now 5 years and at 1% still. Let's move on. what to do and additional resources. If you're interested in applying for PPP, either first draw or second draw, first I encourage you to contact your lender. If you do not have a lender, please feel free to find one on Lender Match, and a great treasure trove of information about all the PPP documents. In fact, I go there literally daily, multiple times a day, because it's very challenging to memorize everything. We don't expect you to. SBA.gov/PPP. The latest and greatest guidance is all in there. You can also contact your SBA district office. I'm the South Florida, representing South Florida district today. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and of course you can contact us directly. Let's move on to the next slide. This is obviously my information, and I have Julio Villiers, who will be joining us on the chat. He's on my lending team. He's our newest addition to the SBA team, and we're so happy to have him with us today. And that concludes my presentation, and I appreciate the time, and I'm here to answer any questions that you all have. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you so much. As you said, there is a lot of information, and so we're asking that you all definitely pay attention. We have a couple bankers coming on, our good friend Bernie Drover, Bernardo, who's going to speak a little bit about what they're doing, as well as Bernie Navarro. The one question that you just spoke about, you were telling folks to go to sba.gov/PPP, which a lot of the forms are there, correct?
That is correct. All the forgiveness forms, the application forms, but I just want to caution people before they start downloading our forms and start filling it out, they should check with their lender, because a lot of lenders, especially the larger ones, have an online portal that they've invested in a lot of IT and AI, and especially second draw, a lot of their first draw information, like their SBA loan number and the disbursed amount, will auto-populate on the application. So it just depends on their lender. So they should check with their lender first.
Okay, and another good point that you brought up is definitely to check with their CPA or their tax accountant. I mean, there's a lot of questions that are being asked, and I'm sure Bernie and both Bernies will be able to answer some of those questions. But again, we're not saying that we are the end all. Really check with your accountant, your CPA, and your tax lawyer.
Correct.
So Bernie, Bernardo, welcome. Want to bring you in.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Eric. A pleasure. I want to thank also Alfred Sanchez from the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce and Michael Finney from the Beacon Council. Again, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Bernardo Adrover. I'm the Director for Commercial Business Banking for City National Bank. I think as Deborah mentioned it before, I think this is truly a great opportunity for many small businesses and mid-sized business owners to really take advantage of this government program, to really help tie them, to give them the opportunity for things to pick up in the economy. Also, I think the more important thing is that this time around, I think the government and the stimulus plan is really making this program geared to help minority business owners and small businesses to be really vital parts of our community. And at City National Bank, we were committed, and we are committed to support those small businesses all the time. I want to give you a highlight of what we did last year through the PPP. At City National Bank, we were able to support about 9,500 businesses in the first round of PPP. That means that we had about 9,500 applications. That's the equivalent of about 220,000 jobs that we were able to save within the South Florida community. Most of those loans, I would say 85% of those loans were less than 250,000. So that tells you the commitment to really help the small business owners. A lot of these businesses were clients that we had, but mostly we had a lot of new clients, and we had a lot of new opportunities to help the community at large. I would say that most of those employees, most of those businesses had less than 10 employees. We were probably one of the top lenders within the state. And also in 2021, now with the new advent of the new program, we are looking at really helping more the business community. And I think what we have learned from the past is to basically be able to be there for those businesses, but use technology to help the application process got much better and smoother in all the senses. So what we are venturing to say, I will be willing to answer any questions, but I will ask any member, any participant here today, any good member of the Chamber of Commerce, any good member of the Beacon Council, the Coral Gables, if you don't have a bank, you can use City National Bank. You can use Bernie Navarro's companies to help you in the application process. You can use any one of the lenders that are affiliated with the SBA. And I can tell you that this time around, the process will be even better than what we had before. So I will encourage all businesses to really apply for this beneficial loan. They have made it really, really easy to apply with really good conditions.
Thank you so much. I see Mark Trowbridge has his hand up. So Mark, come on in. Are you there, Mark? Okay.
I'm here. You can
There
hear
you
me.
are. Or is
Oh,
that,
fine.
actually, I think that is our good friend over at Miami Beach that has his hand up with your
Thank
name.
you.
Yes.
Jerry,
Thank you.
Call on Jerry. He's with
yeah,
us.
go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. Bernie, does City National Bank have its own form for the elimination of the debt, the waiver of the payback? What do you call that? The
The forgiveness.
forgiveness. Do you have your own form yet? And if so, where do we get it? If not, do we use the one that's on the SBA?
We have basically partnered with the SBA. Yeah, we have our own form. Everything is digitally formatted, so you can use the link that we have to be able to get that forgiveness taken care of. If you want offline, I can provide you that link later on if you want.
Yes, I really would appreciate it. So you're saying that we use the SBA form, or you're saying you have your own form? I didn't.
If you apply with us,
We applied with you. Yeah.
You can use ours. You apply with any other lender, you can use they probably have their own form. If not, the SBA will suffice to be able to take care of that too as well.
Okay, maybe if you can post it in the chat, because a lot of us probably had it with CNB,
We'll do
how
that.
to get that. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, Jerry. Great question. Right now, I'd like to, before I bring up Bernie Navarro, the one thing I'd like to remind our viewers and listeners is that through the Beacon Council, bizhelp.miami, there is a plethora of information there in terms of applications and banks that would be assisting in other lending institutions, but also providing information for technical assistance for those of you who need help in filling out these applications. So with that, I'd like to bring on Bernie Navarro. Bernie?
Hello, how are you? This is Bernie Navarro. I am president of Benworth Capital Partners. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Miami Chamber, the Beacon Council, and all the Association of Chambers that put this together. Very important to provide this information to the community so we do not get left out. So thank you very much. The most important thing that I can advise the listeners are provide a complete application. Make sure that you don't leave a document out waiting for a processor or somebody to reach out back to you to get that information. Use the resources of the chamber that are out there. The Beacon Council has a lot of resources to put the package together, and talk to your accountant before you submit that application. There's a lot of volume coming in, and we want to make sure we touch everyone. I think the SBA made sure that everybody's going to be able to access these funds. Last time there was a lot of problems with the smaller loans and the the self-employed and the gig economy workers, and just want to let you know that I think this time around everybody will get help and everybody will be touched. The best way to reach someone like my company is through sbabizhelp.com. There's a lot of resources and information there on our portal. If there's a lot of banks out there. Bernie and Dover's Bank, City National Bank did a great job last time submitting these, but some of the bigger banks, some of them will not be in this process the second round. So make sure you're out there. Use Lender Match from the SBA to ensure you have a lender that is close to you. And again, access all the resources out there from the chambers and from the SBA before you submit your application. Understand that our commission and our fees are paid by the government. Make sure you're not paying anyone to package this loan for you, because that would be a travesty and they'll be taking advantage of you. I think there's a lot of information out there for you, for the small business owners, to make sure they submit a complete application to the portals of your bank or anyone you decide to apply to. So thank you very much, and I'm open for questions if anybody has any question. Again, it's sbabizhelp.com, and we're open for any questions.
Thank you, Bernie, so much. Well, let's get right to it. Obviously, there are a lot of questions, and that's why we're here today. And I'm starting with John Johnson. If my average monthly salary increased in 2020, do I have to submit documents to show this? I'm applying with the same bank as I did for round one. Anyone have an answer to that question?
Okay, hi. So their question, can you just repeat that again, please?
Okay, hold on.
So that I can help them.
Let me go back up to it. Hopefully I'll find it. And now I don't see it. Hold on one second. John.
Or you could paraphrase. They were asking.
Yeah, they were asking about the reduction in percentages. Let me.
So they would have to show the 25, I'll just answer it at a macro level. They would have to show a 25% reduction from a quarter of their choosing from either 2019 or 2020. That's for PPP second draw. First draw, and I saw some questions in there. People are getting confused between the two programs. If you never applied for PPP before, you don't get a second draw, because second draw means it's the second time you're getting PPP, right? So if you never got PPP, you would go to first draw. And there is no 25% reduction in revenue from one quarter to the next. In first draw, that's a different, eligibility requirements. So that is showing payroll needs, right? So I would encourage them to go, and I have put that on the chat, sba.gov/PPP. Every single question they could possibly have on PPP is literally on that website.
Okay, I found the question. It was in the middle. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, if my average monthly salary increased in 2020, do I have to submit documents to show this? I'm applying with the same bank as I did for round one.
So if their salary increases and they want more money, they would have to show documentation of it. Remember, we're at $100,000 cap on the salary. So just FYI.
Okay, now let me scroll up to the top and hopefully I'll keep this thing lined up. I have a travel agency, but due to circumstances, I have no employees at this time. I did not apply for PPP.
Okay, I think I saw that one also. And they could apply for round one for their own salary, but I think that individual wrote that they weren't taking a salary. So that just, depends on their individual situation. I would like to remind everyone that we also have sba.gov coronavirus relief, and we have multiple programs besides PPP if you're not eligible for PPP. So I would like to encourage them, and I can put that in the chat when we're done with our Q&A.
Okay. I would like to know if 501c6 and 501c4 is eligible to apply for this round. And I know you did speak about 501c6s and chambers.
Yeah, I already addressed all that in the presentation, the specific nonprofit entities that are eligible. And once again, if they want to see the entire list, they should go to sba.gov/PPP, and it will be on there.
Okay. Besides having to demonstrate that your business experienced a greater than 25% year-over-year quarterly revenue decline from 2019 to 2020, are there any other specific financial or needs-based hurdles, requirements, representations to qualify for this round?
So there's certain eligibility, and we talked about that, in my presentation on that one. They had to have, besides the 25% reduction, they have to have the gross receipts for the comparable quarters, no more than 300 employees. They had to have used their first draw PPP funds already, dispersed and used up. So they should check with their their lender, and see if they're eligible.
Okay, I think you kind of answered this question, but I'm going to ask it as it is being put forth. For the second round or second loan, in theory, the calculated amount for the second PPP should be the same amount as the first PPP?
Well, not really, because that depends on, they're selecting the quarters, and I don't know what their payroll needs are. They would check with their CPA on that, and it may or may not be the same. Every business is set up differently, so not necessarily.
Also, to add to what Deborah said, if you are in the hospitality or restaurant business, you may have opportunity to probably get more money. It's 3.5 times that particular salary. So it could be good, it could be better, it could be corrected to lower. But if you're in that particular industry, in the restaurant business or hospitality, you're gonna have a chance to probably get a bit more money.
Very
And
true. Thank you.
To add to Bernie and Deborah's statement, the government, the SBA, has provided more incentives to ensure that everybody will be touched. And some people did not get that first draw. I think that don't be discouraged. You should apply again and ensure you are protected under this program that is here to help small businesses.
Next question. I applied for PPP loan because I needed it, but they didn't give me it. They were asking about IRS. Why did that jump?
941.
941 or Schedule C?
Yeah, 941, correct.
So we really can't comment on that. I have no clue why. There's a plethora of reasons why someone could be turned down. Could be due to, federal tax liens, delinquent child support. There were certain safeguards in there. Offline, they should talk to their lender and see if they qualify this time. It's too vague of a question, unless anybody wants to add.
This next question, I think I can answer. We have used up our first draw and we have Q1 revenue 25% lower in 2020 versus 2019. And obviously that's what we're saying, what makes you qualify. And that's the question, do they qualify?
Yes, they qualify. That meets the criteria to qualify.
Yeah.
And again, for those specific questions, obviously our panelists are answering questions to the best of their ability, but definitely go to your accountant or your CPA for a final answer on these questions that you have. Do you need to show an audit trial that PPP monies are used exclusively for payroll? Or can you use the monies to replenish other monies used to fund the payroll? It sounds like a CPA question again.
But just,
Yeah, go ahead, Bernie.
so salaries, tips, vacation, medical, sick leaves, group benefits, you can add those items, as well as some of the items that you use to retrofit your business for COVID, plastic dividers, all those things could be used to offset for this purpose. So there are a lot of reasons to use it, to apply for it. And again, a lot of the resources that we've described here have a list of those. We have a list on our portal, but Deb, do you have something to add to that?
I just want to share with people, although we designate 60% payroll, 40% non-payroll, you could do strictly payroll. You could do 100% payroll. So it's really up to you. We set minimums, but the spirit of this legislation in the first place of PPP is getting people to continuing to work and pay their employees, and businesses can stay open or at least retain their employees, even if they're following health directives and they're not fully open at full capacity. So that is the spirit of the legislation.
Okay. Do we qualify if we only have 2 employees and our last payroll was in 2018, not payroll, payroll on 2019?
So it's based on 2019 or 2020. So they would have to check. I don't know, how they're structured now as far as having payroll needs. So if they haven't filed 2019 tax returns, potentially I don't see how they would be eligible, but I am not I have no approval authority. So they should check with sba.gov/PPP. They should look at all the guidance, see if they're eligible.
Okay. I had to close my physical business, but I still have my company open. I would like to reopen. Can the PPP loan, can it help me?
So the second draw has a caveat that you can be temporarily closed, but if you permanently close, then you wouldn't be eligible for second draw. I'm not sure if they got first draw or not. It doesn't matter if they have a physical location. Many people are teleworking from their home. I'm teleworking. If their business is continuing to operate and they have payroll needs, and due to COVID, restrictions, they are not fully operating at capacity, then potentially, yes, they could, be eligible.
Is there a difference with applying with the downloaded document, or can I also apply from my bank?
So let's be clear of SBA's role here. We are the government agency guaranteeing the loans. This program is 100% facilitated directly through our banks, our approved banks, and our approved lenders. And I encourage them to check with their bank first. On every bank and every lender has their own internal, processes on whether they want them to upload our application and download it into their system, or whether they have we heard earlier, some banks have, an IT program and AI and software that it just all sort of, feeds into that, and they don't have to do anything. They just log on to their bank website,
Right.
Right.
Let me add a little bit to that, Eric. Yeah, from round 1 to where we are today, we learned a lot, and a lot of the banks are using portals and their own applications. So go on to your bank or where you're going to apply, and I'm sure all the forms will be there and everything you may need. I don't think you should be downloading something else because it may be a waste of time.
Okay. Is this correct? The first PPP forgiveness is taxable and the second one is not.
So I do not give tax advice to people. So I want them to encourage them. Every small business should have a relationship with a CPA or an accountant that hopefully specializes in their industry, and they should consult an expert, right?
Correct. And that's definitely what we said when we started, to make sure that you check in with your CPA or your accountant, tax attorney, et cetera. So again, these answers aren't end all. I know that our experts here have a lot of information, but at the end of the day, you definitely need to work with your financial advisors, your accountants, et cetera. What is the, go ahead, Bernardo.
Yeah, Eric, what I wanted to add is that those are really good questions. I mean, you probably asked me as a banker will say, it sounds, yeah, yes, but you have to have the certainty and the additional knowledge that a CPA will bet that that is the correct answer. So that's what we advise. Maybe this gives us, as the Chamber of Commerce Beacon Council and the panelists, maybe next round out that we do this PPP, maybe bring a CPA firm that has expertise in these and maybe answer some of these questions, because we're getting a lot of those too.
Right. That's a good point, Bernardo.
Another question we're getting a lot of is, Deb, if you can add some color to this, that's the idle advance. Can you give some color towards forgiveness? We're getting a lot of that question. What do we do with that towards forgiveness?
And actually, I was just answering an idle advance question in the chat while you asked me that. So that's very ironic. Okay, so sure. So idle advance, let's talk about round one. The legislation, this was, codified, by Congress. This is what it said, that if you got the idle advance loan, that it would be subtracted at PPP forgiveness. The Economic Aid Act uncoupled those two. So we separated them. So now the idle advance, if you got it the first round, it is a true grant and it will not be subtracted. If you already did your forgiveness application through your lender and your balance of your idle advance, 1,000 or 10,000, is still remaining with the lender, right? You still owe that money because it was subtracted at forgiveness stage by the SBA. You will now be reimbursed, but just give your lender some time. The SBA first has to reimburse the lender, and then the lender will credit the borrower directly. Please don't call our district office and ask for your idle advance. I've already gotten plenty of calls on that. I am not the one that cuts the checks here. So we at district office cannot give that to you. Now, the idle advance, the new program that we've launched is a targeted idle advance. That is for very specific borrowers that live in an LMI, low to moderate income area. And they will be, it is my understanding, district office does not facilitate idle advance or idle program. That is through the Office of Disaster Assistance. But it is my understanding that those borrowers that qualify will be contacted.
Okay. I believe I know the answer to this question. What is the minimum amount of employees needed to qualify? What about home-based businesses? So you can be self-employed and qualify, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
And not have any employees.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So can we still add covered expenses to the second request? Perhaps it was our lender's corporate decision to only allow the same amount.
So,
Can you repeat the question? Were you clear on the question?
No, can you repeat that?
Yes. So can we still add covered expenses to the second request? Perhaps it was our lender's corporate decision to only allow the same amount.
So we have new covered operational expenses besides, mortgage interest and rent and utility, electric, gas, water, transportation, telephone, internet. As long as you were in contract prior to February 15th, you could potentially, expense those through the PPP, but we added covered operational expenditures, and that would be any business software, cloud computing service that facilitates, the business operation, product or service delivery, processing payment, tracking of payroll expenses, human resources, sales and billing functions, or accounting or tracking of supplies, inventory, records, or expenses. This is straight out of the interim final rule, everybody. Please check out our sba.gov/PPP for all eligible covered expenses. Remember, round one, who got it first? It's the people that had the knowledge and the understanding and had their finances in order. And I applaud you all today for being on this call, because knowledge is power. The more you understand the program, the more you're going to be able to help your business and get those covered expenses that you need.
Yes. Good.
Bernardo, were you saying something?
No, yes, correct. And she's totally
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
For the 25% decrease in receipts qualification, what constitutes receipts? Is this sales or received payments? We utilize a cash-based accounting method in our industry. I think that sounds like we're going back to an accountant
Yes.
answer.
Yeah, I can just shed some light based on the interim final rule. What are gross receipts for the purpose of determining eligibility for a second draw? The answer is gross receipts for a for-profit business generally are all revenue in whatever form received or accrued in accordance to the entity's accounting method. So whatever they do accrual, or if they do cash, from whatever source, including the sales of products or services, interest, dividends, rent, royalties, fees, or commission, reduced by returns and allowances, but excluding net capital gains and losses. And obviously everything that can be proven of what you file on your IRS tax returns. I am not a CPA. So if I own my business though, and I used to have 2 small businesses, I would be making an appointment with my accountant to unpack all that and help walk me through what I could expense or not.
Yes. And that goes to this next question. I have an LLC and my husband and I are the owners and only workers. Can I get PPP? I didn't pay myself during 2020. I guess a part of that question is, did you pay yourself in 2019? Would I be going in the right direction, Bernardo or Bernie?
Eric, there is, so to clarify that a little bit, this is the Paycheck Protection Program. So the number, the 2.5 that Bernardo talked about and Deb talked about, is going to be based on the payroll. You can allocate that 60-40 to payroll and then to expenses, but you can't just say I have expenses. So it's going to be based on the payroll. There has to be payroll to use this program, to apply and qualify for this program. You have to have payroll, be it your self-employed payroll or you have employees. So that's shedding some light on that. You just can't use, let's say, the expense portion of this and bring it into the equation. It's based on the payroll, and then you can allocate funds to one or the other.
Right. Well, let me dig a little deeper on that. So as I was saying, and we're talking about this 25% reduction. If I had a payroll and I was paying myself in 2019, and here we are in 2020, and I wasn't able to pay myself because of the reduction. But again, that's another CPA question or accountant question.
Right.
I just want to chime in. Remember, if people don't have payroll, first of all, Bernie, thank you. That was a huge, tremendous point that you just made. Remember, we have other programs. Not everybody may be eligible for PPP. So someone like that doesn't have payroll needs, but has operational needs, and they did file tax returns in 2019, they could potentially apply for the EIDL loan, which has extremely favorable terms. at 3.75% over 30 years, fixed first 12 months deferred principal and interest payments, and it can pay for fixed debt. Of course, it can pay for payroll too, but accounts payable and any kind of bills that they are having trouble paying that they wouldn't have had trouble paying prior to the impact of the disaster. So somebody like that, I would say, check out Idle Loan. I don't know if they were profit. The other thing is they needed to be profitable in 2019 because that would have been,
Right.
an important factor.
But in summary, Eric, this program is protecting the payroll.
Correct.
Protecting the payroll. Everything stems from where are we with the payroll, and then you can allocate it to different buckets, if you will, to expenses or to your payroll. But it's based on the payroll number.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next question. Let me make sure I'm here, rolling up correctly. Give me one moment. Will City National Bank, and then it jumped, pardon me. Will City National Bank process Ppp Loan Forgiveness if it was not processed by this bank? I'm not clear on that question.
I think I'll answer that. I think the protocol will be that whatever bank that particular small business applies to go through that bank, as they have the records. That will be the best. That will be the protocol to follow. Follow the bank or the financial institution that did it for you, because we don't have the initial application of the record how that PPP came about. However, we can. I mean, you can choose your second bank or financial institution for the second round PPP availability.
Bernardo, I see another question since you're speaking about City National Bank. They're asking, do you require that you open an account with the bank?
It is not required. We always look for establishing relationships at the bank whenever we have the chance, but it's not a requirement. We'll be open to open and maintain a relationship. We always look for that long-term relationship at the bank.
Eric, I see a good question here that we didn't cover. That someone asked, what would happen to a business that began operations in January 2020, so they don't have the comparable 2019 data? So for second draw, they would use, per the interim final rule, it is my understanding that they could use the Q1 of 2020, and then they'd have to compare it to another quarter in 2020 to show the 25% reduction in revenue. If anybody else, Bernice, plural, if you want to chime in, feel free.
I did well.
What did you say, Bernie? I'm sorry.
No, she said it well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Nothing to add.
All right. Is there any? Bear with me. It keeps jumping because more questions are coming in. Come back. Is there any government help for businesses that started after February 15th, 2020 due to the pandemic? Many clients lost jobs, so they started their own company and need assistance. That kind of aligns with what you were saying, right, Deb?
Yeah, right. Not everybody's going to qualify for PPP. I know that we have a new link for businesses that don't qualify for PPP and Idle. In fact, it's so brand new. I read about it yesterday. I can put it in the chat, and I'll tell everybody it is COVID-19 funding sources, and that's at sba.gov, and that will link you. And we've culled information from all kinds of alternative lending sources in there and different kind of programs, COVID programs. So I encourage everybody to look at that. If you don't have payroll needs, you're not going to be eligible for PPP. If you weren't profitable in 2019, you're not going to be eligible for EIDL. Remember, EIDL loan is not a loan to resuscitate unhealthy pre-COVID businesses, right? EIDL loan is a loan that is to be used to help you cover your operational expenses that because of COVID, you can't cover them anymore. But pre-COVID 2019, you were incurring, getting revenue and you were able to cover your bills. So those people are not going to be eligible that don't fall under those two categories. So there's still other COVID-19 resources. I read someone here in the chat, the Career Source has grants partnering with another organization. Maybe someone can talk about that. I don't know if you know about that, but someone posted that. There's other resources.
That is correct. And again, I would direct people to bizhelp.miami because through the Beacon Council, they have a plethora, as I mentioned before, of resources to help. And again, your question in reference, there are more questions in reference to income in 2019 and not having income in 2020. And so therefore, as you said, they're not eligible because it's based on payroll. Next question. If a foreign national is a shareholder of a U.S. corporation, how can the company apply since the first round it asked for driver's license and social security number and they did not have because they are from Netherlands? They qualified, but because of this, they could not apply. What do you suggest? Then again, I would.
Miami got a lot of those, Eric, and I'm going to
Yeah.
defer to Deb.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for you to answer, Bernie. So your principal for PPP, per the interim final rule, your principal place of business needs to be in the US and it's to cover US employees. Anything beyond, I don't get into people's legal status or whatever. They should check with, their attorney on whether, I don't want to comment on that.
Right.
All I can say is what the interim final rule says. Your physical place, your permanent your residence has to be in the US and you have to, it's for US employees, the payroll. Anybody want to comment on that? They're welcome to.
Yeah, Eric, during the first PPP, there was some confusion on that and wasn't clear. And I think the interim final rule clarified that. And again, as Deb says, talk to your attorney, but a lot of businesses that weren't eligible because their principal was not a US resident. However, their employees are US residents and the companies in the United States, a lot of them were able to get funding because we were protecting those jobs. So as Deb says, you should talk to your attorney, but there was a lot of clarification on that. And I believe that the provisions have been made to facilitate that situation.
We had the same situation at City National Bank. We had a lot of incidents like that, a lot of situations like that. And we ended up doing more or less the same thing. I think to add to that question, the answer to that question will be, I know that the SBA basically is going to look at the TIN number, at the tax ID number of that corporation. If it's locally, if it's here within the United States, and if you are the owner and you don't have a social security, then the rendering of the decision has to be really done through an attorney. It could go either way.
Right. But we are protecting U.S. jobs,
Exactly.
Eric, and I think that's the bottom line. And so if they talk to their attorney, I'm sure the interim final rule speaks to it.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies, and gentlemen. If I returned a portion of the first draw, can we apply for the second?
So they returned a portion of the first draw?
That's what they're saying, yes.
So here's how it works. If I'm just going to say in general, so people understand the difference, who can apply first draw and second draw, I'm going to reiterate from my presentation. So if you got first draw and the funds were dispersed, meaning you got the money in your account. Even if you decided to return those funds, you still, because it was already dispersed, my understanding, reading the interim final rule, and guidance is fluid and this could change, but you would still have to apply for a second draw because it already was funded. If you never applied the first time, or let's say you got approved, but you actually decided to cancel it and you never took possession of the funding and never was dispersed into your bank account, then you would still be able to do first draw. So that's kind of the rule as I understand it as of today's guidance.
Okay, round one principals are limited up to 100,000 annual salary cap. How about second round? Is there such a limit or not?
So same thing.
Same thing.
Okay. I'm a small business LLC. Only my husband and myself. I am the only one that takes a salary. I take my salary as a draw. Has draw versus payroll been addressed? The original PPP round did not identify the rules for showing the draws as proof of payroll.
So again, you need to speak to your accountant, but you need to show the 941 or the Schedule C to show that there was some kind of salary. We are protecting the payroll. We're protecting the payroll. That's the purpose and the intent of the law. And there has to be some payroll. How you put that in your books, that's something else. And again, you need to seek some advice on that.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Is the employee retention percentage calculated the same way for forgiveness of the second round loans? For example, in the first draw, we were able to maintain our employee level as we compared to the reference period because of the PPP loan. But after the loan was exhausted, we unfortunately had to let some employees go. Again, this PPP is to retain employees.
So if they're talking about the employee retention credit, that's not an SBA program, that's an IRS program. They need to go to irs.gov and consult with their CPA or their accountant on that. I cannot advise, I cannot give legal accounting advice.
Okay. And I'm trying not to be repetitive here, so I'm trying to read through some of these.
So I can jump in, Eric, will give you a chance to select a good one for us.
Okay, please.
One of them, sure, someone's asking, since idle advances are no longer deducted, is this retroactive for the first PPP loan? Yes. So even if you applied for forgiveness and you're holding a balance at your lender, we will be going back, meaning the SBA, refunding it, my understanding is plus interest that's accrued, back to the lender, and the lender will credit your account, or you do speak with the lender, right, directly on how they're going to facilitate those idle advance refunds. I do not know that that has occurred as of today. That's something we're building the guidance and working on, and that should happen very, very soon.
That's Deborah, that's a really good response. This is something really important because that's a question that we get all the time. That's a really good answer on that. Really good answer.
Thank you.
We have not received any documentations to get the first round funding forgiven. Do we have to get that done before we apply for the second round?
So no. So as long as they've used all their dispersed funds, they can apply for second draw before they get forgiveness. Let's remind people about the forgiveness process. That can take a long time. So I think in our effort of trying to help small businesses get the access to capital quickly, efficiently, so they can stay open, pay their employees. Remember, the lender, when you apply for forgiveness, the lender has 60 days to review documentation, make a determination. Then it goes to the SBA. And we will take up to 90 days potentially, but it's going a lot quicker. I speak to lenders and banks all day long, and maybe the two lenders on the panel can give people an idea of how quickly the forgiveness process is going, since I'm not personally involved with that. So that's 5 months, and then you have right to appeal, and there's a whole several month process. So we don't want to hold that up. Right? We don't want to hold up you getting the second draw before you get your forgiveness. So that is my understanding on why we put that we didn't put that requirement in. But remember, you need to use the funds up from your first draw, because logically, why would you need a second loan if you haven't even used up your funds, your first loan? So that safeguard is in there.
Is there any disadvantage if I apply with another institution? I think Bernardo kind of answered this question. If I apply with another institution different from the one I used for the first round?
There shouldn't be any disadvantage, but again, you have a relationship with a bank and the bank is taking care of you, you should probably give him a second chance. But at the end of the day, during the first round and the second round, at City National Bank, we had a lot of clients that were disenfranchised with their existing financial institution, and we were able to help them out. I mean, it's up to that particular client, but I will say that yes, you can apply with any other financial institution or any other bank, including ourselves.
Eric, that's a great question. I think that if I can give some advice to the business owners on the call, you should start with where you feel comfortable with. Some banks weren't able to get to all their customers, so that's why our institution, it was a handful of institutions were approved. We're a non-depository institution that can help clients, business owners with their application. City National Bank, where Bernie works, they did a phenomenal job. They were one of the top lenders in the country, and they touched all their business clients. But we're here also to meet that gap. If there's a gap, if you're having trouble reaching your bank or getting in touch with your bank, or if the user experience wasn't the right one, there are other institutions and other options. You may not have to open a bank account like with us. You don't have to open a bank account with our institution. So there are options. I suggest to get advice from the Beacon Council, from the Chamber. Go to Lender Match, the SBA Lender Match, and see where you're at and what you want to do. But there are options out there, and don't let that be a hindrance. If your bank is not responding to you, there's a bunch of banks that are not that will not participate in the second round. So you have to find the best solution for you. And there are options out there. There's City National Bank, which Bernie works for, and there's other institutions such as mine, which are non-depository institution, which will take your loan.
Thank you, Bernie. That's good response. I have more than 300 employees spread in different locations. I had received the first round. Am I eligible for the second round?
So that depends. So the rule is for second draw, 300 employees or less per entity, right? So when you say spread around, I'm not exactly sure what they mean with that. So it just depends, right? But they cannot have any more than 300 employees. They have to demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between a comparable quarter of 2019 or 2020. Eric, I see a question that Julio is asking for us to answer live, and it's a good question, and we haven't covered it yet. They're asking if in the seminar event business, do we qualify for the 3.5 times factoring to get more funds? So remember, in PPP second draw, we did put that if you are that NAICS code 72 food and accommodations industry, then you could potentially be eligible for 3.5 times your monthly average payroll. I also want to mention something because we haven't mentioned it yet. We have an SVO grant, a Shuttered Venue Operators Grant as well.
Yep.
Now, that is not being facilitated through our lenders. That is not facilitated through district office because people are asking us as well. That is facilitated like our EIDL loans through our Office of Disaster Assistance. And if you are in that food and event theatrical businesses, you could potentially be eligible for that grant. And that's another, like our EIDL advanced grant, that's a targeted grant. So those that need it the most are going to get it first. If you had a 90% drop in revenue, from last year from 2019, 2020, then you get the grant application first. Then it goes to 70, and then I think it drops to 25% reduction. So the biggest important thing to remember for small businesses that are in that sort of event theatrical industry, you can only get one or the other. Either you get the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant or you get PPP second draw. You can't double dip, as they say.
Okay. Borrower agent fees. Are the lender and borrower agent fee schedules the same as first and second draw? Deborah, you have a response to that? And there's some more to that, but I just wanted to come to the first part of the question.
So all agent fees and everything, that's all on our sba.gov/PPP. They should look at the interim final rule. Some of that I did read shifted a bit. However, if you are a broker or an agent and you're working with a specific lender, you have to make sure that that lender is accepting referrals from a broker. Because not all banks work with brokers. They have their own teams of business consultants, right? That they hire and train and know their internal processes. So that's the one thing I want to make sure there was some confusion on that on round one. So check with the lender. A lot of the smaller banks and alternative lenders do work with broker and agent referral fees.
Okay, and I'm going to go through this. There's 4 parts to that same question. Is there an SBA form for disclosure of borrower, agent, or lender? If not, what disclosure is recommended?
I defer to the banks on this because this is not between the SBA and the broker. This is between the bank, the lender, and the broker. So I'm going to open that up to the Bernies.
All right, I'll answer first. At City National, we don't have that arrangement. We don't work with any brokers. I don't know of that form. We haven't used it.
There is no form for a borrower broker relationship. If there is a broker, an agent institution relationship, it's between them two, between the agent and the broker. Again, as Deb said, you should look at the rules. Rules did change from first to the second, and we work with a limited number of agents.
So your recommendation is to talk to the institution that they're doing business with or trying to do business with?
Correct.
Okay. Must my 2019 taxes be fully processed with the IRS in order to apply and get approved for the second round?
They said 2019 or 2020?
Now they're saying 2019.
My understanding is 2019, yes, 2020, no. But they still have to have for 2020, they have to do, have all their financial year-end calculations done. They have to know what their revenue is because first of all, how are they going to, and at least their interim calculations, because how are they going to compare the 25% revenue drop from one corresponding quarter in 2019 to one corresponding in 2020. And one thing we've learned from this whole disaster, especially, working for the SBA, and I know the bankers and lenders here on this call feel the same.
Yeah.
Financial literacy. This is so important to get your financials in order, because we're in 2021 and this person's asking about 2019. So I encourage them to work with our resource partners and obviously, and get a little more TA, which is called technical assistance, in helping them really get up to speed on their financials, because those most successful business owners, they get a handle on their finances real early. You can ask them, what are your revenues last year? And they can rattle it off. So I just think that's very important, to get a handle on your finances. Just a
Very
little
important.
advice.
Very important.
Deborah.
That's great advice. You shouldn't wait for the lender to determine that for you, or ask the, there's a lot of, again, I go back, there's the Beacon Council resources, the chamber resources to answer some of these questions, and then your CPA, because if you wait, there's a lot of volume coming through these lenders, and that's not the time to ask that. You should be submitting a complete package to get the best results. And if you do that, it sounds simple, it sounds easy, but don't submit half a package waiting for them to ask questions, because it's not going to work out. It's just going to get put to the side, and it's not going to work out for you, and you're going to be frustrated. So get all the knowledge, get all the resources, read some of the SBA resources that Deb Salas was talking about, and some of it is very simple, and you'll figure it out pretty quick.
This other question says they had didn't have PPP, very complicated. Again, I would direct you to bizhelp.miami with the Beacon Council.
Eric, I see one that
Go ahead.
says, what's the time frame to use the funds for round 2? In case they missed my presentation earlier, March 31st, 2021, unless legislatively that is extended for some reason, as per today's guidance, that is the date, March 31st, 2021.
Anya, comment you line. Get some.
Okay, someone was
Alfred.
How is 300 max employee criteria determined? Is it at the time of application or averaging during 2020?
It's gonna go by their payroll records, is my understanding. I'll let the bankers and the lenders talk about that.
It's a great CPA question. I think that 300 employees is a lot of employees, and I think that's so technical that they need to speak to their CPA.
I'm so sorry that I interrupted before, but I wanted to make the point, because a lot of the questions have to do with having some kind of technical support. You've heard there are a lot of us who have direct services. You can actually speak to someone or get in touch with someone who will help walk you through these. BizHelp.Miami is one through the Beacon Council. The Chamber has GMCC, CARES. I mean, there's a lot of help out there for you. So please avail yourself. You've heard it a couple of times, but there are almost 200 of you out there. Please use the services that we've all worked hard to be able to get you all the one-on-one help that you might need. Thanks.
And these are services, Alfred, thank you for bringing that up. These are services that you don't have to pay for. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there that are paying people to figure this out for them. And when I see that, I'm dismayed. There's a lot of services, we're hearing it, just a little reading, and the services talked about here, it'll go a long way to submit that complete package. I can't say it enough.
Couple questions. If we have 20,000 monthly payroll, our gross sales were less than 30%. They're asking what would their second PP loan amount be? We don't have an answer to that. You got to go through the process of filling out the application and submitting it, correct?
Correct.
So the recommendation is, again, you have to go through the process and fill out the application with the bank or the lending institution, and they will determine that at that time. Who makes the decision about approvals? Is it banks or is it the SBA?
So as far as approvals, the program is 100% facilitated directly through the lender, but there are some restrictions that apply. And when the lender uploads the application into, our SBA portal, then different than round one, there will be a lag in approval. So there are safeguards built in for this round to ensure the integrity of the program and the funds get into the hands that those deserve it and need it and are eligible for it to prevent fraud. Absolutely. So yes, once they run it through, the SBA will have, as they say, final say, just like in forgiveness. But obviously they should work with their lender on eligibility.
If someone starts their business today and have payroll, can they apply for PPP?
If they start their business today,
Are you gonna compare? Yeah.
that's a startup. So I can answer that, no, because as Bernie so eloquently said, this is to retain employees on payroll, 60%. You have to have payroll needs.
Okay. Going through these questions again, trying to get back to where I was.
You're doing good, Eric.
A lot of questions. And we're glad that you all are here. We really appreciate you being here. That's why we're here to help our small businesses. There are U.S. businesses with all U.S. employees, but principal is not U.S. person. We already answered that question.
We answered that.
Yeah. If the
And
business,
Eric, if it's okay, maybe just one more question, and then we're going to bring things to a close here right at the top of the hour, my friend.
yeah, we are very close. Thank you, Mark, for reminding me. And again, we really appreciate you all coming in here and providing these questions. And I know we're going to have to do this again. So I am going to scroll down and ask one more question. Is the forgiveness calculation for the second draw calculated the same way as the first draw? Is forgiveness reduced if you have less employees now than during the look back period used for the loan amount calculation? That's a pretty interesting question. Did you all follow that?
Say the first part again, because I think it was two questions.
Yes. Is the forgiveness calculation for the second draw calculated the same way as the first draw?
So we updated, I'll just take that if you want. We updated our interim final rule on forgiveness, and all that information, in fact, I was just reading it about an hour before here, is all on sba.gov/PPP, the forgiveness. Rules and regulations and guidance, it does talk about that on if they have a reduction of FTE headcounts. And they should look at that because there's a million different scenarios.
I got to ask this one last question to one of my bosses. Is there anything out there for landlords who are not getting rent but cannot evict?
So, well, maybe someone else wants to answer, go ahead. There's all different kinds of programs. If they're a business entity and they're eligible and they have payroll needs, then they can go to PPP. If they have operational needs and they were profitable in 2019, they could potentially go idle. There's all kinds of eligibility. We could sit here for hours talking about all the restrictions and the rules for everything, but we're just doing sort of a macro top line today. And I also encourage them to go to sba.gov/coronavirus relief. So for very specific needs, there might be a specific program that we just don't know about that even a state or local municipality might offer to them as well.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing afternoon. We've been here from 12:30. It's 2 o'clock now. I want to thank both Bernies, Bernardo, Bernie, Deborah, obviously Mike, Alf, and we're going to have our good friend Mark close us out. But to all of you all, we are here to support you. The Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Miami Chamber, of Coral Gables, Miami Beach, the Coalition of Chambers, just reach out to us, and to the Beacon Council as well. So thank you again for joining us today. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you all for joining us today. I know this was a lot of information and a lot of questions, but it shows us that this was the right moment for us to be collaborating on a program like this. And most importantly, to reach out to our extended networks and through our family that is part of our individual chambers. And Deborah, thank you. Bernie, thank you. Bernie Navarro, thank you. It's a pleasure to have folks who are invested and engaged in topics like this each day. And it's clear that our membership is looking for as much information as possible, especially those who are going through this for the very first time. I can tell you we're very pleased that 501c6 organizations have now been included in this next round. And so I say thank you to all of my colleagues that are part of our coalition. Our coalition, which represents about 15 or 16 different local chambers, has been meeting and working and collaborating since the middle of March when this pandemic began. And so today is just another outgrowth of that collaboration. So I'll also, again, in addition to the panel, thank Mike Finney and the team at the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, Alfred Sanchez and the team at the Greater Miami Chamber, especially Tanya, for keeping all of us in line for today. Eric and his team at Miami-Dade Chamber and all of our coalition partners, many of them were on today, helped promote this event from the southern reaches of our county in Homestead all the way to Elaine up in Aventura. So with that, stay tuned for what our next opportunities are. It's clear to me that we will likely come back and convene again around these topics, but most importantly, reach out to your resources, to your chamber, your local community banks, because they are the heroes every step of the way in this process, along with the SBA. Thanks, everybody. Have a safe and great Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you, Mark.
everything.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.